All right, full disclosure, we're recording. So we have all these concepts, like what is JavaScript and the console and comments, and we went through some of this. We even addressed data types and arithmetic operations. Well, we haven't really quite done that just yet. So part of my job is to figure out, well, what else can we do? Right? What else can you do with these things? And we're beginning to see this because one of the built-in methods that we saw, the built-in objects number 9 here, is the math object. Okay, and there's a date object. Okay, and there's even an object for events. Like how do you handle a scroll? How do you handle a mouse click? How do you handle a double mouse click? And all that stuff is already in there. And so this is all part of the JavaScript API, like all the stuff that you shouldn't have to write, the stuff that you can just say math and give me all of the math functions. Okay. All right. So into the professor pen, let's do an easy one here. Okay. All right. We're all in the professor pen. All right. Let's take care of last night's daily engagement. All right, I'm gonna comment all this out. So again, you can encode pen, highlight it all, hit command forward, and it'll give you the inline comments. Again, we have two types of comments. We have inline comments and block comments, right? This is just a recap of last week's class. Okay, so this is an inline comment. Okay, and wherever you go work, they're gonna say, well, we only use one or the other, or here's how we use one, here's how we use the other. You just need to get used to both. Okay. I would love to have inline comments inside of CSS someday, but not quite there yet. All right, so those are our comments. So up at the very top here, we're going to have our random number generator. Okay. And what we want to be able to do is be able to see what is actually happening, and we do that with the console. Okay. So we've just addressed point number 3 there, comments. We're looking at number 2 is the console. And the console is massive. There is a lot of stuff inside of the console. You can do so many other things other than just log stuff out. But just for our class, all we're going to do is .log. We want to make sure that this is working. Okay. Every project I work on, before I do anything else, I put this little message inside of here. Okay. And I can't stress this enough. We just go console.log OK. Right? And if I don't see this OK and just this and nothing else, that means something has gone wrong. Okay, and so JavaScript has to be read sequentially, right? Well, for our class right now, like JavaScript is read sequentially, right? Essentially top to bottom. And if there's something missing, right? So for some reason, let's say, and today we're going to be adding an external piece of JavaScript into this, and say something is missing, you'll just throw an error and say, I don't know what this thing is. Right? And that's what we want on a JavaScript. We want us to give those errors. So we're gonna hop into our debug mode here, fire up the console, right? And again, you can move this console tab around like so, okay, and you can see what's there. Good, and notice I get nothing but okay. Okay, you can even drop in an emoji in there if you'd like, just so you can. What happened to that pin? So you can drop in an emoji in there, just to make sure that it's working. Why am I belaboring this point? Because if you just start typing JavaScript like CSS, right? If you just start typing that and you're like, it doesn't work. I typed it. That's not how this works. We need to change our way of thinking about writing code, right? It's different now. HTML, CSS was markup and style, right? So markup and style it. JavaScript is a little bit more programming, and we need to get into that mindset. And that's why I'm really driving this point home, is we need to think about this language differently than HTML and CSS. All right, so now that we got that, let's go ahead and write our random number. Okay, so this is just our check. Okay, but Colin, the solution is down at the bottom here. Why are we writing it? Because I want you to understand it. All right, first off, let's go ahead and make sure that we understand the math object. Okay, let's go inside of this and just replace OK with math. And this is our data types. This is an object. Okay, just like hand me that object. What is it exactly? It's just this generic thing called an object. And eventually you're going to be able to make your own objects. You're going to be able to make a student object. You're going to be able to make a design student object. You're going to be able to, your applications and your websites are going to have different things. And you want to be able to have a way to construct those things. And this is a key concept of JavaScript. All right, so we're gonna hit save on this and refresh this. And like we saw in last class, right? Here's all of the math objects, all the stuff we can sign it. We can get pi, right? We can get sine, cosine. Good. Let's actually go do that. Let's go math.pi. All right, pi, and let's go ahead and take a look at that. Right, and there's pi. Right, so let's say if you're making a website that calculated the radius of something, and you were like putting that in manually, you're kind of doing this wrong, right? We want all those objects are there. All right, so for this, we're supposed to do a console.log, a whole random number between 0 and 42. So we want math, and we have something here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, math, and then math.random. Okay. Good, now random, okay, isn't just a property. As we saw here with math.pi, okay, that this is a property. This is a noun, right? So this is a property of the math object. And we have to, just like I said in Web 1, like we have to start using the lingo, right? So pi, right? So I'm going to use the backtick so we can see this, right? So pi is a property of the math object. And I want you to be able to take a look at any documentation. And good documentation uses this lingo because there's a huge difference, right? Because essentially the property is kind of the noun, okay, of the object. Okay, so you can think of this as the noun. And so therefore random is kind of the verb of this, right? So again, we're going to go random, right, is the method, okay? And anytime you have a function or an action, okay? And I'm going to be, for right now, we're going to be using the two terms method and function interchangeably. And there's a difference between the two, and we'll dissect that later. But for right now, right, this noun, okay, this is why this is a language, right? Colin, you're talking about verbs and nouns. Yes, this is how we understand conceptually how a language is. And the first couple of weeks are kind of boring. And toward the end of class today, we're going to see how we can use these really dry concepts. Because if you think we're going to spend all quarter in the console right here, it's going to be a really boring class, right? And what we want to be able to do is say, how can we get a little bit more visual on this, but still learn these same concepts? Also, Codecademy is great. They're teaching you all these things, all right, but it's still kind of dry. Okay? It's still not visual. And so what we want to be able to do here is figure out a better way to do that. And we'll take a look at that at the end of class. And this is the same thing of the math object. All right, so we have math.pi, math.random. But notice, right, let's go ahead and run this, refresh this, okay? And it says math.random is a function, right? This is the console saying, hey, this thing, it's not a property. You have to give it a, left paren, right paren. Good, or otherwise you're not going to get math.random. Now, old school, this would throw an error, like I don't know what math.random is. It's a function. Okay? If we do that now, we're going to get a random number between 0 and 1. Okay, good. All right, so now we got that math. Now that we've addressed all that, so we've addressed the console, the comments, data types, like what type of data this is. This is a number. Okay, we've looked at point number 8, methods, right? We've looked at the built-in objects. Okay, we've looked at properties. Okay. So now that we have all that, right, we're going to see the last one. So we have all of this, and I'm just logging this all out. So let's copy this one. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do our last console.log here. Okay. And let's take care of. Okay. So what we want to do with math.random is we want to round it down. Right? You can round it up if you want to start counting at 1, but we want to start counting at 0. So we're going to use math.floor. So math.floor is right inside of here. Right? So it's kind of tedious to keep typing this, right? Console.log, right? Like we have to go back and forth. There's got to be a better way, and modern dev tools allow us to do just that. So if we go inside of here, right, we have essentially the REPL, okay, REPLE, REPL. Oh, this is recorded now. I'm going to be embarrassed because I forgot what the REPL stands for. Repeat, execute, print, and something. I'm gonna look it up, y'all. This is the REPL. Okay, read, evaluate, print loop. Good. All right, that's essentially what's happening with this this line right here, right? We're gonna be able to actually just evaluate our stuff right inside of here. So we can actually type math.floor right inside of here, and notice we get the code completion. Oh, I love doing this in 2020 because we get lots of tools like this, right? And we can see math.floor is not a number. Okay, So we can actually use the tools that we have at our disposal, right? So we're going to go math.floor, math.random, and right, and now notice .floor has a left paren, right paren because it's an action. It's not a noun, it's a verb, it's an action. And so math.random is also an action, right? And so if we run that, it's always going to go to 0. Heck, we can even replace this with what's the opposite of floor? Ceiling, I believe it's ceiling JavaScript. I should know this. Seal. I think is it. Let's say, oh, good there. Oh, they truncated. I'm old. It used to actually be ceiling, but it's just seal now. I don't like it. I like the old one. Anyway, so we're rounding up and we're rounding down. Okay, so we could go back to our pen and just keep putting this into our console. But, now that we have a modern console, this makes it a lot easier. Again, make sure that logs is actually checked, right? I was very embarrassed in last lecture. I forgot to check this and I was like, where isn't anything working? So, all right, good. Okay, so we're just slowly getting used to our tools. All right, so now what we want to do is, and then if you hit up and down, go ahead and hit up, right? It'll bring back everything you just did. See, here's all the stuff that we did from last class, document, all this function. And essentially this is your quote unquote command line, right, into your application, into JavaScript, into the browser. Good. So I'm just hitting the up arrow and the down arrow, and I can go backwards and forwards in time. All right, so let's try this out. Math.run. So I don't want to type all that again, so I'm just going to hit the up arrow. Okay. And we're going to go math.random, and then we're going to multiply this. All right, can anybody yell out what if I want a number between 0 and 42, right? Because 42 is the answer for everything, right? What number, what is my multiplier? What am I going to multiply this number by?
42.
42, that's it, that's our max. Okay, and now if I keep running this, 3, 36, 13, right? So the convenience of using the REPL or this command line interface, right, call it what you like. I don't want to get into the nerd fight. Is we don't have to keep refreshing our page, but we could do that. So, but now that we have this working solution, I'm just going to copy all of that. So Josh, thanks for the answer on that one, right? And then I can put all of that into the console, like so. And so for your daily challenge or your daily engagement, that's your answer right there on line 9. So thanks for coming to class. That's your. So you can copy and paste that and put it right into there. Good. All right, make a pen for that. Oh, I'm gonna fix this assignment live as we, okay. And then submission is provide URL to pen. All right. And after class, I'm just gonna go ahead and post them all for the week. All right, so we got that done. We're up on that. Okay. And as we see right here, this is our arithmetic operation. Okay? So on last Friday, you had to go through this introduction to JavaScript. And I think they do a pretty good job with saying, like, here are some of the things that you can do with it, right? So in each interactive lesson, there's like a free form project that they have here, and their lessons aren't really good, but we're probably not going to make a Kelvin weather project, and we're probably not going to make something in dog years. Okay. And so what I want to start doing here is adding things that are a little bit more visual, okay, and things are a little bit more useful. And one of the things that we did last time was we created a. So now I'm gonna comment all that stuff out. And again, you can hit command / to turn commenting on and off, command / turn your comments on and off. And what we did last class was create this. Okay. What was it called? Our random random generator, right? That's going to output a random greeting. Okay. And so now let's go ahead and make this a do more stuff, right? So we're taking these these Lego pieces. Another way to think about them is we're taking these Lego pieces, we're taking these ideas, these concepts, and we're saying like, well, what can we do with them? Okay, like no one wants to see the console except web developers. And so, we use arithmetic operations as soon as we hit the multiplier, right? We use arithmetic operations. And then lastly, we need to see about string concatenation, okay? So I'm just going through each one of these and saying like, well, all right, here are all of the different ideas. What can you make with it? Okay. And so let's go ahead and take a look at string concatenation. Okay. So string concatenation is basically a fancy way to say you're adding strings together, or you're combining strings. Adding is kind of the wrong lingo here. What's confusing at first is line 20 here. Okay, again, like I said last week, what's on the right is assigned to what's on the left. So 3 is assigned to max. Okay, it's not equal. Equality is this. This is equality, and this is type equality, right? So it has to be a number 3. And so what we're going to do with this is, what else can we do? Well, right inside of here, it says hello, right? Maybe I want to add that into there, right? Or maybe I want to add in an emoji. I'm slowly getting to emojis, y'all. Let me see here. All right. Welcome to 2020. How many years late am I on this thing? All right, so we got this string right here, and we begin to start adding these strings together. Okay. And so string concatenation is really powerful. Okay, so we're going to have a string. So let's go ahead and put in our string. Okay, and each one of these, right? So we can come in here and go plus. All right, let's see if I can get an error. Can I do that inside of an array? I always forget. Yeah, I can. So notice we're just adding in, right? Because an emoji is literally a bunch of strings. We can decode it. We can decode an emoji, right? And you see it's just a string of characters. Oh, this might not be the website for this. Emoji character strings. Okay. So if you think emojis are just images, sorry, right? They're UTF characters, or is it UTF? Unicode. I forgot which Unicode. I'm gonna stop here because there it is. Right, here is the Unicode character for each of these emojis, and depending upon the platform that you're on, whether Android and Twitter or Apple, right? If you put in that Unicode, that's what actually comes out. So really, what we're doing is every emoji that we put in, right, is just a bunch of strings. This is right. Visually, we see this, right? But to the browser, it's just a bunch of strings. And because we know it's just a bunch of strings, we can add those strings together, right? Hola is Spanish, right? Good. And notice how, watch this, there is no space, right? It's actually, there's no space between this E, right, and the emoji. So if we want a space, we have to do what? Make a space and add it into that. And so if you're thinking, well, that is tedious and cumbersome, why would anybody do that? All we're trying to do right now is understand this basic concept of string concatenation, right? That basically when we put in a bunch of characters, right? JavaScript sees this as one character, another character, and another character. And we're splicing and adding those characters together. Okay. Good? Okay. All right. There is our recap of all of that. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and wipe this clean for just a second. Good. Everybody, can you fork this pen? Yay. Throw up an emoji or a reaction. All right, so we are gonna have a basic, all right, so what I wanna say to you now is, all right, we got this, Colin, but what else can I do with it? Well, let's go ahead and do a random background image, okay? Let's go ahead and make this one easy, okay? And so on your course website, this is why I have a section here. Where is our course website? Oh, look, you can see them all. Sorry, now I'm into the rabbit hole of emojis. On our course website, there is a section listed under called UI patterns. Okay. And so now we're trying to get applied, right? So another way to think about these UI patterns, and I'll throw them all up, is once you have this little concept, you can make different things. And if you want to see more different patterns, go to codepen.io/topics. Okay. And there's going to have a whole bunch of UI patterns. And these are all built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? And what we want to say to ourselves is, all right, we have this knowledge base. What can we make of it? We can make games. We can make dialogues. We can make these fancy buttons. Fancy buttons like this one. Ooh, fancy button. Good. Okay. So please don't look at these concepts as just like pedantic things to learn. Like what we're trying to figure out is like, all right, we know these ingredients. What can we make with it? Right. So another thing that we can make with this is a random background generator. So I'm going to do that real fast. Okay. All right. So inside of, all right, so now that we have this concept down, all right, so we have a body here, right? And now, Colin, doesn't CodePen already give us a body? Yeah, but we just can't see it right here. There's no way to visually see it. So we're gonna have to write in the body manually. And then we're gonna have some different colors. Okay. So write this, okay. And so we have a color of class of BG. Let's see here. So we have a class of BG0. Which is going to give us crimson, and BG1 gives us green, yellow, and BG2 gives us blue, violet, right? So easy CSS stuff, but all right, we're human beings and we don't want to have to go in and do this. You don't want to get a phone call saying, hey, designer, wake up today and go change the background color. Like JavaScript can actually do that, right? So if we can do this manually, we can tell JavaScript how to automate it, right? And I kept stressing this point last week. If we cannot do this manually and understand it, like how we would step through this, okay? And this is one of the key things that we're learning here is we can't ask JavaScript to do that same thing. Like you have to be able to explain it with words. Okay. All right, so now that we know that how that needs to happen, right? And our default color is going to be white. First thing we need to do is store some background classes, right? And we're going to do this with an array, okay? But Colin, we haven't gotten to arrays yet. Don't worry, okay? They're just making our life easier right now, right? Basically, this is a file cabinet, and these are all the drawers in the file cabinet, right? The other thing here is we're going to be introduced now, right? So last week I said just learn var, and that'll be enough for us for right now. So var is our variable, okay? And where I'm getting ahead is the next part of your textbook here. Okay, right here under variables. So there are different types of variable declarations, and var is the common one. Var is the one that's been with us for a very long time. We also have let. We have const. Okay. So what you need to ask yourself is basically the good rule of thumb. There is the short version here is use const until it needs to change. Use const until it needs to change. So a good constant is pi, right? A good constant is your student number. Okay. Can someone give me something that would not be a good constant to store? What changes and needs to change? Pi is not going to change.
The date.
The date? Oh, yeah, right. What else? Anybody else? Josh, that's a good one.
The temperature outside right now.
Yeah, right. What about you in terms of being a student? Could change.
Grade, like
Grade.
a year.
Yep. All good ones, right? And that would be let, right? And I'm going very, very slowly on this because we need to understand this concept. So I don't want to get into the nerdy details of why we should try to avoid var as much as possible, right? But Colin, it works. It's a security risk, right? That's it. Short version, right? So just use const until something needs to change. Now our background, right, can work with const, okay? Now, but we started out with them being let before, okay? So it's this idea of, oh shoot, I don't want to get too far into this, but is it mutable, right? Can we change it later in our program, right? Do we want to change it later in our program? Should we change it later in our program? And if all those answers are no, right, const is a good thing to use. Okay. All right. I don't want to get into mutability. All right. So const, and then each file in the file cabinet is separated with a comma. Good. And so this is file A, file B, file C. And because these things are strings, they should be in single quotes, right? For my class, all of JavaScript is in single quotes, okay? I don't want to get into the big nerd fight about double quotes versus single quotes. Okay. Get on Reddit and watch people go crazy about double quotes versus single quotes or the internet. Good. All right. So now we got that. Let's go ahead and put all that stuff back. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and store these random background images, okay, like so. Something, something, something. End of that statement. Okay. And so what am I storing? Well, I'm storing the CSS classes, right? I'm storing the class, and I don't want to put the dot in there because JavaScript doesn't need the dot for the class. Okay. And that's just one of the gotchas that we just have to be aware of. And I'm a big fan of semicolons. You can get on the internet and get into more nerd fights about whether or not you should end your JavaScript statements and expressions with a semicolon. I'm old. I was at a time where we had to end it with semicolons, and I just like knowing that this is where the line ends. So, right, if you can be a cool new modern browser developer and not put semicolons in, but I use them both. Good. All right. So then we know how to get a random number, right? And because we only have 3 random background images, we're only going to have a max of 3. We're going to swap through 3 images. Okay. All right, so this is where now we get into the tricky part. Next we need to do is get that. Oh, my son wants to say hi. Can he say hi? Wait, I know I can't. You're gonna, oh, you can just talk. Go ahead. Talk.
Hi.
Okay, there you go. All right, go back. All right. Oh, look at you. All right. You got a thumbs up, little man. All right. So what we want to do is get the background. Okay. Oh, sorry. So we're going to use const. Okay. Const background. Okay. Now we're going to do is get the actual element. Okay. So we're going to say let, okay, because the page background might change. So notice up here, right, these backgrounds are pretty much fixed. But we're going to swap. What do I mean by fixed is those colors aren't going to change, right? Those values, we're not going to be changing BG0, BG1. And so now we're going to create a new variable here called page background. Okay, you can stop right there. Like, get the element that you want to change. Okay, what do we want to call the element? In this case, capital B on page background. Okay, we're going to use that camel casing. It's so prevalent in JavaScript. And so then we're just going to traverse the DOM. Right, first we're going to do is grab the document, basically grab the entire web page, and then we're going to move down into that and say we're going to run this action. Well, what action are we going to do? Hey, document, go get this thing with go get this element, right? And we go get that element with the query selector, like go find this element, right? And again, query is just to ask. Okay, we're asking for this thing, which thing? This selector. So we're asking for the body. Good. And then we can even check on this. And we can go console.log. Oh, we can, let's get cool kid here. All right, we can hit save on this and we can come right into here. Okay, and we can actually even type out watch page. Let's see if it picked it up. Come on, CodePen. Page. Oh, look at us today. All right, notice that it's showing you page background. Right. So right now the browser is picking up, oh, you created a new, you added something to the JavaScript universe that didn't exist before. Page background, capital B, didn't exist before. Right. And your browser is picking up on that. And so, old school, we had to type console.log page background and to see it. But look, this just shows up now. So now that deserves a clap. But all right, page background. And now we hit page background. There we go. That's the element. It went in and grabbed the body element. And this is all of the nodes that we couldn't see in Web 1 that was a part of the page. And this is all of the stuff that it can do, right? These are all the properties and all the methods inside of the body. Okay, so now that we got that, okay, what we want to be able to do now, right, is change the class name. So if we go into our element, and I can scroll down here, right, I'm looking for this property, right, called class name. Okay, filter. Oh, it's only going to filter objects. All right. No, I'm just talking to myself. We're going to come down to here. There is a property right there called class name. Right. And notice that the value of that is blank. And so objects are set up on these key value pairs, right? And basically, it's assigning what's on the left to what's on the right. In this case, the class name is blank, and on the left is the value of class name, capital N. So what if we come into our body for a second and made a class name, right? Okay. And in JavaScript, so in HTML, you type class, right? But in JavaScript, you have to type class name. So we reference it in HTML with just class, like our regular class. And in this, I'm going to put in XYZ. Right? And I'm going to hit save on this, right? All caps. I'm going to yell it out and even put a whole bunch of exclamation points so I can see this. And if I go ahead and take a look underneath the hood, I'm hitting up, right? Hitting up and down and go backwards and forwards. If I come into this, I can see that there is something called class name, and the value now is XYZ. And watch what happens, right? Watch what happens. When I type in page background dot class name for that property, right? I should see what? XYZ and nothing else. So let me collapse this console. Okay. All right. So now I hope you're beginning to see that this is really challenging and nearly impossible to do without the console. Like this, I so talks to I'm stammering because there's so much here that we're not talking about. All right, so we got page background, right? And so we're traversing, we're going down into this object, okay? And we use the dot notation just to go down into it, and we're looking for this specific property called class name, and there it is, XYZ. So now that we have this information, all we're gonna do is this. We're gonna say, hey, go find what, right? Now we're going to change what was there. So we can get stuff and we can set stuff. And if JavaScript talks a lot about getting and setting, getting and setting, getting and setting. Okay. So we got this class name. We went and got it, right? So get this thing. Now we want to reset it. We're going to set it to something else. Okay. And conceptually, that's what we need to understand. Right? That's the big picture takeaway from today. Okay. Getting and setting. And so we could type this all again and go document dot, but we already have a variable here, right? And what we're doing is we're saving the work of having to retype that over again. So we could do this, right? And do, but that's redundant, right? Programmers are inherently lazy, right? Laziness breeds efficiency. And we could do that, and we're going to get, XYZ in this case. But we don't want to have to do that again, okay? Because we know that we can replace all of this right here with what? And hopefully we get this. What can we replace all that with? Anybody?
Page background.
Page background, right? Brian, capital B or not, page background.
Capital B.
Yeah, my robot voice is now forever on the internet. Okay, we're gonna put that back on, right? So there we go, right? Instead of typing right, we're doing our page background as we saw right here. We tested it out inside in the console. We got it working. Now we're going to apply it to our code. We can come in here. We can change this value, right? And now we can set this thing to BG2, and forever our page is going to be blue violet. And we change it to BG1, right? It's going to be green yellow, and we're going to change this to BG0. And what we don't want to do is have to sit here, right, and change these things manually. JavaScript, every time the page loads, rerun this script. JavaScript, every time the page loads, rerun this script. So to get that, we're going to replace all of this, as we know from previous class. We're going to go say load what? Load all of these backgrounds, right? So check, JavaScript did that. but now JavaScript is confused because there are 3 files in this file cabinet, right? There are 3 files in this file cabinet right here. And we want to say, we want you to randomize, right, between each one in the file cabinet, right? So first we're going to reference the file cabinet, right, with our square brackets. And inside of here, we can put in 0, which is going to give us the first file in the file cabinet, 1, which is going to give us the second, and 2, the third. And as we saw from last class, anybody want to yell it out? What are we going to replace that number 0, 1, and 2 with? All right, Brian, you're highlighted. What am I going to put right there? What are we putting there?
Numrand.
Numrand, right? Because that's what we want to do. Randomize that number. I don't want to sit here. I don't want to get a phone call that says, hey, can you change it from 0 to 1? Oh, make it 2. No. Every time you refresh the page, okay. So now it's working. Okay, good. If you can change the background color, you can change the background image. Okay, and so easy to do that. Let's see here. What was I looking on in Imgur? Background image. Right, and let's go ahead. Background tile. I'm just searching for a random. You know what? CodePen has a random background tile. Excuse me. I think CodePen will do this. So we're gonna comment out that one and just do a background. And then CodePen assets now has, I keep forgetting about this. We can go to patterns. Thank you, CodePen. I'm gonna grab that. And okay, so background color, background image, same thing. All right, paste it all right into there. Oh, they want to give me the full code. Fine. Now, if we refresh this and we get BG0, we should get that tile there. Come on, 0. There it is. Good. And you can just swap those out. All right, fork this pin. Okay. This is just we will take a look at this later in the quarter. Okay, we're going to be using SVG more in the quarter. All right, we're running a little bit long. Do you mind if we crowbar in some of the visual stuff real fast? Okay.
Sure.
All right, let's go ahead now, because it feels like some of you got this. All right, so I'm gonna clear out the master, the professor pen here. So to help with some of this, right? So that's all well and good, Colin. Like we're learning all of these concepts of variables and all of these JavaScript concepts. But we have something a little bit more fun to look at. So inside of your JavaScript panel here, what I want you to do is load in this library called P5. So one of the concepts we looked at was built-in objects, date, math, and events. There's a whole bunch of other objects in there. But what if you want something that doesn't exist? And this is where JavaScript libraries come into play. And the best way I can think about a JavaScript library is the Sega Genesis add-ons. Okay. Oh, I just dropped my cursor. All right. Let's see here. Let's take a look at this. Where's it? There's the image I'm looking for. All right. So so your base station, right? The base console is JavaScript. And inside of that, like if you wanted to play a CD, you had to buy this module that attached. And a good way to think about this is all these things that you add to a game, like the Java, Figma has plugins, Photoshop has plugins, or anything that extends the base functionality. Okay, and JavaScript is your base functionality, right? It's your base, and then you can add it in a library. So the library we're going to add is P5. So let's go ahead into our JavaScript panel, and we can simply search for this thing called P5 and P5.js, and that's what we want. P5.js is going to give us this right here. Let's go ahead and hit save on that. Okay, and so we're going to load this thing remotely in from from an external source, and I'm going to go ahead and put that right inside of there like so. Okay, so you can copy that and paste that URL inside of there. And so what's happening here is this thing is going to get loaded before our scripts. Okay, because for us to use P5, we first have to load P5. Okay, so we got to load P5 before we use P5. Now here's one of the good and bad things about JavaScript. Our HTML going to be blank. Our CSS going to be blank, right? Everything is going to be done inside JavaScript. And this has a downside and an upside. The upside is everything's inside JavaScript and we only have to worry about one file. The downside here is if JavaScript is slow to load or doesn't load, our page is blank and completely white. How many websites have you gone to? You're like, why is this page completely blank? There's no other indicator. There's no other fallbacks. Okay, so just kind of be aware of that. All right, so again, double check that you have this library included right here, right? So we're adding this module, this plugin, okay? And this gets loaded before whatever we're gonna type next, okay? So another way to think about this is a library loaded before. All right, so this has two methods, okay, that gets this all set up. The first one is we're going to set up the canvas, okay? So if you take a look at this, we're gonna have this method here. Oops. Let's go ahead and set up the canvas. So I'm kind of getting ahead. I'm getting ahead of what you're going to be doing with your homework here. We're getting into functions, right? And functions are actions, right? And actions that you can make yourself, and it's under this section right here, section 3. Okay. Conditionals, I don't know why they have conditionals as number 2, but it's not the order that I would be teaching you stuff in, but it is what it is, right? So we're getting ahead right here in this idea of a function. And to use a function, right, we're going to simply use the word function, right? And so that means we can't create a variable here called function. We can't let function. We can't const function, right? Because that word belongs to JavaScript, right? And same, just like we couldn't, this is the same reason why we can't create a variable called class, okay? And so function belongs to JavaScript as one of its reserved keywords, okay, as you saw, right? And so inside of JavaScript, because it's a action, right? So we're creating this custom action here, left paren, right paren, and then all the good stuff happens between the curly brace. This is your abridged introduction to functions, right? Good stuff. All the good stuff happens inside the curly brace right here. Good stuff, right? And so we just need to get used to the syntax, okay? So the way to break this down is, hey, make me a reusable thing. Okay, and who made that reusable thing is P5. So P5 created this function called setup, okay, and lowercase setup. And what we're going to do here, right, real fast, is we're going to use a function inside of a function. In this case, we're going to create the canvas. Okay? Now, before we do that, we better, sure as heck, right, do OK and hit save. And like, I want to make sure that everything is loaded and hit refresh. And I see OK. Now, I'm going to intentionally mess this up. You're not going to do this. I'm going to intentionally remove P5. I'm going to go to that Sega Genesis and rip out that add-on. Okay, so I'm going to remove that add-on. Okay, I'm going to go into Photoshop and remove the add-on. So I remove the add-on there, right? And then if I refresh this page here, it's going to, watch what's going to happen here. Nothing. Right, it's going to throw an error. It's just like, it's basically saying, hey, I can't use any of this because you took that library out, right? Everybody get that? Okay. So what we want to make sure is, hey, like, in order to use setup, so JavaScript, that setup function isn't a part of JavaScript. It's not a part of its built-in objects. Setup is not a part of the built-in objects inside of JavaScript. It's a part of the add-on. It's a part of the add-on. In this case, the P5 add-on there. So I'm going to put that back. Okay, again, I put back the library that I removed. Okay, and so now we're going to get the console.log OK, right? And again, this is inside of this function, and because this function needed that plugin, it wasn't recognized. Right? JavaScript basically says, yeah, I'm going to skip over this because I don't know what it is. You haven't added it to the universe. It doesn't exist in the JavaScript universe. All right, so Colin, what's the big freaking deal about this? Ready. You're going to use this method called create canvas, capital C, and a function has 2 arguments, okay? And the first argument, okay, or some options, right? This is going to be our width, okay, and our height. And of course, we don't want to write just width and height, right? Let's actually give it a width and a height. And so we're going to use a different type of data, not a string. So you don't want to say height in quotes, right? We want to say 800 in quotes, because JavaScript says this is the character 8, this is the character 0, this is the character 0, right? It just means we can't add it. Really, what we want is actual dimensions. Okay, so we're going to do something 800 by 400, and we separate those arguments, right, with a comma. Good, good. Okay, so inside of P5, we have something called create canvas. So, but on our page here, we can't see it. But if we refresh our console, it's still okay. So we're not getting any errors. Okay, but nothing is showing up on our page. So this is JavaScript being JavaScript, right? JavaScript saying, hey, you didn't tell me to put this stuff on the page. Okay. And so this is where your imagination can kind of run wild here. Imagination stuff. So if we set it up, you have to actually draw it to the screen. So we're going to do that same thing again, function, and we're going to use P5's draw function, left curly, right curly, right? And we're going to actually draw this onto the page here, like so. All right. Good. It's there. Believe me, it's there, right? But it's blank. Y'all, why are we doing this? If you refresh your page and bring up the console and you take a look at your inspector now, right? What happened inside of your page? It actually drew the canvas element. Okay, so the canvas element is just basically the sandbox for you to draw into. And so what we're going to do now is give this a color. Okay, and a good way to do this is to come right into here and set up we're going to use this background property. And make this easy and just make it red. Okay. And there we go. That's our canvas. Okay. And to use P5, right? That's just the start of it. This is the basic setup. So for what we're doing, the majority of our stuff is going to be inside of Draw. But already by just getting this set up, we're using a lot of the concepts that we've started learning about. Yeah. So now if you're thinking this is really boring, we just drew a red square on a page. This is what I need you to do, y'all. And this is how we're going to end class. Go to codepen.io. And I just want you to search for P5, right? And you will be inundated, right, with things made with P5, like these smoke particles. Okay. Woo, ah. This is where you ooh and ah, everybody. Woo, ah. Right. And there are so many, let's be more specific here, p5.js. So p5.js is a nice library to learn how to apply JavaScript concepts. Okay, we're going to be able to draw onto the canvas element and make these really cool, cool stuff. In another class, we actually put this all up on the screen, and I've talked about it before, but we made a rave. And we created all these like a random. Here, if you search for generative art, like we had a party, and on the screens was everybody's generative. I don't know why that's doing that. Zoom is taking over so yeah. Good. Okay. All this stuff is created in P5. So you could really take this stuff pretty far, right? And look, you never have seen this code before, right? You've never seen this code, but here is the basic draw function. And up at the very top is our setup function. We just got introduced to this, and here is a variable, and this is the variable name. What type of data is this? And already by just looking at this line of code, you can just explain it to me. So think about how much we've covered in just 2 class sessions, essentially. It's quite a bit. Okay. You're looking at this really complex example and you understand more of it after 2 class sessions, right, than you might think. Okay. All right, that's good enough. Stop this.